understand how the country is, the methodology and how a country would be risk rated. And by now we should know where we're at as the Bahamas in terms of the risk rating form. We know that we have a copy of the CFATF mutual evaluation assessment from 2017. We looked at the key findings. We discussed the FATF tasks, and we discussed what the Bahamas has done to correct some of the deficient, the 22 deficiencies of the 40 recommendations. And so by now we should have a clear picture of how the country is risk rated. Is it clear on the steps that it takes for the country to be risk rated?
Yes.
Patricia, I know you said you had some issues with risk. Is it clear from the country's point of view?
Yeah, I'll have to go over that one.
Okay, but you understand it starts from recommendation 1.
Yes.
Okay, all right. And then it's the FDRA section 5 that makes a risk assessment mandatory for the country, for the organization, and then for the client. Okay, and so hopefully by the end of this class we should understand exactly how the risk rating works. Okay, but before we get, I see there's a few persons that are not here yet, so we'll start with any newspaper clippings or anybody that wants to get their 5%. And any newspaper, any 5% today?
Miss Bullard, I'm here. McDonald, I'm here. I'm on my phone.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
No? Oh,
Yeah, well, I guess I would like to share an article that was in yesterday's Guardian. It's about the bribery and corruption case with Shane Gibson. I'm discussing how he suffered substantial losses after the malicious prosecution, and based on a particular section in the Prevention of Bribery Act, it permits a person acquitted after a trial before the Supreme Court to make an application to, I guess, recoup any costs that they may have incurred. And the taxes are said to be paid out of the consolidated fund. But Gibson's reason for the application basically stemmed around the fact that because the trial was so widespread and it was so heavily, it was in the media a lot, he suffered reputational risk, and it was difficult for him to earn any income as a result of it. So he's seeking costs for legal fees and opportunity costs by him not being able to seek employment due to the fact that, you know, his name was basically plastered all over the place, and they didn't win the case against him. So yeah, he's seeking damages.
yeah, so I saw that article, and I almost read it to say that they had awarded him costs.
Yes,
they
he was awarded costs.
He was awarded, but they still have to calculate exactly how much.
Right, there's an assessment process to go through, but he is awarded his cost.
Yeah. Yes, listen, you know, I'm very iffy about that and that whole case. And yeah, I don't know if I really want to comment, but I only want to say that we're being internationally watched. If he is awarded costs and reputational damage, so will Frank Smith, so will Kendrick Dorsett, so will everybody else who wins. And of course, we know all of them basically, you know, is going to get off. And so
What concerns me is this assessment process and how they're going to go about calculating these legal fees and damages. I feel as if they are going to milk it for all it's worth.
Of course, and each one of them they're going to milk it. And whilst the PLP is in power, they're going to make sure that they are paid. And
Definitely.
so
Right.
again, we're being internationally watched. Let me just say that. And they are opening up a can of worms. I think they should just walk away. You know, fine, you had to pay costs, but I don't. He had 4 QCs. Was it
Yeah.
absolutely necessary to have?
Senior counsel, Zip.
Yep. Was it necessary? I mean, I somebody's going to have to say, he went to the maximum requirement. He definitely wasn't at the minimum. You did not need 4 QCs to represent you, but nevertheless, that's what happened.
What happens in the assessment, part of a trial? What happens is that you submit all of your billings as the lawyer, and a judge goes through each of them along with the opposing side, who would be the prosecution in this case, and they will determine whether your legal fees for whatever particular point you have on that invoice is justified in today's market. And so if it's too high, they would bring it down. If it's too low, it may go up. But at the end of the day, a judge will assess all of the billings, or judges will assess all of the billings, and then they would decide a rough figure. What the
is
judges
fair
then
and
do,
reasonable.
right? And then what the judges then do, they put a time frame on it for when the government has to pay. So they don't just say, oh, you are awarded your costs. They then say, well, the losing party has 30, 60, 90 days to pay these costs. So the government, they will have to do it, whether it was the F&M or the PLP who was in power, they will be ordered to pay it. But what is so grave is that us, the taxpayers, that falls on us.
Yeah.
That is falling on us at the end of the day.
Yeah, well, we'll see how it goes, but I'm not, I have to stay from, I can't even, when I read that, I just said, oh my God, there we go again. But nevertheless, he did win his case, and yeah, that's all I have to comment about. But
I think Frank Smith won his own as well, eh?
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. He is the first, and as soon as he is awarded, or even before, I'm certain Frank will be up there with the same nonsense, because they could get jobs anywhere. And I'm sure they're on boards right now that the VLP is in power. They couldn't get jobs because the F&M was in power. I don't think it had anything to do with their reputation.
Frank should not, Mr. Smith should not claim reputational damage because he's employed with the Sunshine Group.
Okay.
He always remained employed with them as I think he's a public accountant, not a chartered.
And he has a very long criminal history. I won't tell you what he got fired for a few years ago. So I am surprised, he may not. But he may not
remember.
He may not remember that he was removed. Yeah, but anyway, let Miss Bullet be quiet. Okay, risk. Okay, very good, Alfreda. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so that means we can jump right into risk. And again, like I said, we looked at recommendation 1. We know what recommendation 1 says. Countries must assess their risk and then put controls in place to mitigate that risk. Okay, and the risk framework is threefold. It is your risk appetite, the country's risk appetite, then the organization's risk appetite, then assessing that risk, and then risk rating your customers. Okay, so on the country level, on behalf of the country, we have the regulators, the Securities Commission, the Central Bank, the Compliance Commission, the Gaming Board. Okay, all under those regulators are supervised financial institutions. They call them SFIs. Each SFI is then risk rated dependent on the type of appetite that they have. So if they have an appetite for Russia and Venezuela and Iran, we automatically know that if they have more than 50% of their business in those countries, more than likely their business will be risk rated high. And so what companies do with their risk appetite is they put percentages in sometimes, and they say, listen, we do want to do business with PEPs, but we can't have more than 20% PEPs. We do want to do business with various high risk countries, but no more than 20%. And through the process of onboarding applicants or new clients, we do check the percentage to ensure that the business itself is not overall risk rated because then the business will be subjected to enhanced due diligence. And again, the regulators are now lining up your audits with your risk rating. So if you're risk rated as high, that means you have to be audited annually. And if medium, every 2 years, low, every 3 years. So of course, no institution wants to be risk rated high, and no country wants to be risk rated high, because we saw where the perception is that the Bahamas is risk rated high. And so when we went to New York and we tried to open up the account to bring our trading desk, they simply told us we don't do business with high risk countries. Okay, and it was just the perception. And it was because that the last time our risk rating, our country was risk rating was in 214. The last risk rating we have is the 250 and 216 risk rating that is gravely deficient. And so we looked at that last week. Okay. But chapter 7 talks about the customer risk profiling. Okay. And definitely, in order to determine if your company is risk rated high, medium, or low, it depends on the portfolio that you hold. Okay, and so just like the Basil committee, they had various sectors, I think they call it, where bribery and corruption was under one, the CFATF agreement was under another one, whether we are considered a transit country, which we are, all of these things. And so they show you the percentages and you work it out yourself. So when you submit your assessment, you already know. I mean, if a knowledgeable person would be like, we have to put some controls in place, or we have to, like the governor said, listen, we're gonna get hit hard on the cash, being cash intensive. We're gonna get hit hard on the money services businesses. We're gonna get hit hard on the gaming. And so what did we do? We created the sand dollar. And so the sand dollar does not, makes us less cash intensive. And we strategically place the sand dollar through the money services businesses with hopes that that would cause it to be, not in the high category. Okay, so that's a control that we put in place, which the CFATF or the Basil committee would consider and not give us the highest rating possible under that category of cash intensivity. Okay, is that clear? Or no, I just confusing you all further.
Makes sense to me.
You're sure now, it's a lot. This is an example, and again, you can have your risk rating numeric, or you can have just data, like you can just ask questions, and if the questions are yes, you are PEP, yes, you are from a high risk country, yes, this is a bearer share account, 3 yeses, then you are high, 3 no's, then you are low. It was an institution that I work with, they ask specific questions, and you would get if you had more than 5 yeses, then you were considered high. If you had less, then you were considered low. they did not even have a medium rating. Okay, the law requires, I mean, you can tailor it to your business, but for the most part, most businesses go with the high, medium, or low. Okay, but that particular company, they did it with just data, and they did not have a medium category. Okay, I'm sharing the screen, and again, this is just a form that is in Excel. Most companies have a similar one in Excel where they select, these are the categories to the left, and we're looking at the categories, which are nationality, domicile, and again, you could have up to 3 persons on this account. And so at the top would have been if you were a company, and then the beneficial owners at the bottom. But if it was an individual, you would just start at line 18. Are we following this on the screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So it's nationality, domicile, these are the categories: professional sector, business activity, country of work. Is the holder the same as the client? Yes or no? Because again, you can have a power of attorney on accountant, or somebody sign on your behalf. The type of account, whether it's corporate, individual, employee account, or commercial. The operational risk and the special risk were categories that we put in there because some persons may have come up as low risk because they might have been in the Bahamas and they work in the Bahamas, and the professional sector was low risk. And we put these categories, and then if we selected yes, you would automatically go over our 50%. That would make us high. So this is, most companies add those 2 sectors in just so they could automatically make the person high risk. And if you do that, then you want to say what the reason is that you made that person high risk. Okay, and then transactional activity, initial deposits, future deposits, total AUMs, met the beneficial owner, yes or no. Okay, and in the central bank guidelines, because in the offshore world, nobody walks into the bank and open up the account or ask to open up an account. It's normally done offshore in Switzerland, in Canada, all over Europe. And we have external asset managers who would meet the client on our behalf. And we would perhaps just talk to the client on the phone, or sometimes we don't have any contact with the client, but they would do, our verification. And so if you did not meet the client in person, the law requires you to have the highest rating in this category. Now, that does not mean that you will be overall high risk. It just means that that particular category, you will be, it'll have the highest rating. So 20 points is the highest. So you'll get 20 points if you were to say, yeah, no, I did not meet the client.
Would a video
Okay.
call suffice?
Well, I guess you're meeting the client and you can verify that is, it matches the passport and what have you. So yeah, the video call should suffice. Okay, and so along on the left side, these are the categories. Okay, and so I think the homework or the classwork question would ask you, what categories would you add in a risk rating? What categories would I add? I would add nationality. Where would you get this information from? From the Basil Committee or Transparency International? Because you don't decide if a country is high, medium, or low, right? Where do you get domicile from? From the Basil Committee. Professional sector. There's a source out there. It's the BSMA that risk rate various professional sectors. And so that's a methodology. That's where I get this information from. The country of work, again, from the Basil Committee or from Transparency International. So, okay, this one isn't allowing me to select. But normally, like I said, for the most part, these are the normal categories. And in columns F and G, you would see the highest rating you can get is 10 under these countries. So if you're in like a country like Afghanistan or what have you, of course, you know, you're going to get the full points if your nationality and your domicile and your professional sector is all in a high-risk country. Of course, overall, you will get a high-risk rating. So normally, if your score is between 0 and 30, you would be risk rated as low. If your score is between 30 and 50, you are risk rated as medium. Or some persons or some companies decide if your score is risk rated if it's from 30 to 75, they may consider you medium. But if your score goes over 75 points, then you're considered high risk. And again, all these totals add up together, and then you get a total rating, and that's how clients are normally risk rated. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Y'all ask me some questions, give me some feedback. Y'all just saying, yeah, huh?
Who normally would complete this? The risk department or the compliance department?
Okay, so normally what should happen is compliance should be completely independent of the business and should not be operational.
I
That
like how
never
you
happens.
always just say normally.
Yeah, it never ever happens because it seems like everybody else, they just feel like they can't take on the risk or they don't want it done. So on the onboarding department should put this information in. And why they should put it in is because they are speaking with the client, right?
The client.
Times we have to go back and say the nationality and the domicile is different. This is missing, that is missing, that is, so there should be an onboarding sales department and then a verification department, and then it should go to compliance. So compliance is essentially only supposed to check this to make sure it's not been manipulated. Okay?
How
And
would
that-
the nationality and the domicile be? Isn't that, okay, if it's different, that would be what? They
Yeah,
live in a different country from their
You know,
passport?
people remember now, because of taxes, remember we talked about taxes, persons have moved to other jurisdictions. And so even though they move, there's a difference between nationality and citizenship. But people fight me when I say this. Nationality is where you're born. Citizenship is what you can apply for. Okay? And so you can have a European passport, a US passport, and apply for Bahamian citizenship. That does not make you a Bahamian. Correct? You were still born in the US or in Canada. Okay? And so unless you relinquish your Canadian citizenship 100% or relinquish your European citizenship, then you go and get a Bahamian passport. I don't know if they do dual citizenship any longer, but I know my company, automatically, if you have dual citizenship, we risk rate you as high, and you could live in the Bahamas and be domiciled in the Bahamas, professional sector be in the Bahamas, and we would risk rate you as high because you have that dual citizenship. Okay, and a lot of countries.
No, we don't do they don't do dual citizenship anymore. At least not here.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, a lot of, because of the risk associated with it, a lot of persons just. Yeah,
But that's after a certain year, right? Because
Yeah,
I
ain't gonna
think-
stop that.
yeah, because I think my best friend has dual citizenship.
Yeah, that was like, I think from 02 or something like that. He
Yeah.
stopped that. Like when kids turn 18, they had to make a decision where you can't have two masters.
Right,
But
right.
my friend 27 and she still have both passports.
Because probably when she chose, that wasn't in places yet.
And that would have been in high school, so that was long after 2002. That's why I asked when did they stop that, because
Yeah, they stopped it. I can't remember exactly when, but he stopped it.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and so primarily, some of the issues, and again, this is what from the regulators, these risk rating forms that are in Excel, do you normally have 7 to 10 persons in the onboarding department that share this form by email? And so there are like 7 versions okay? And then because it's in Excel, it can pick up microbes. The formulas can be miscalculated when you send it through email. There's something called end user computing that when you complete a form, you are to check it and verify that all the formulas are correct and it didn't pick up microbes and nothing has been distorted within the form, and nobody checks that. Like I said, for the most part, we found that there are if there are 7 people, persons in a department, 7 versions, okay? Or information is misinterpreted. It's a lot of deficiencies surrounding these risk rating forms. And of course, because the onboarding department is completing this, they already know what compliance would look for. They already know what the risk appetite is. And so they try to manipulate the information as much as possible. And, you know, sometimes persons like, particularly people in Venezuela, they have 2 addresses. And so they say, oh, no, don't put, you have another address in Spain or somewhere else in Europe. Let's use that one. Let's not even mention that you are from Venezuela because that's a sanctioned country. So you wanna, when you're doing your due diligence check, that salesperson is required to know the customer and as compliance. And, you know, a lot of times there was an institution that did not, you know, complete a account opening synopsis. So it was difficult for you to determine who was doing what, especially with companies and very complex structures. You know, you need an explanation as to who is in charge, where the people from, how they generated their wealth. Okay. So make sure that you do the proper balances and checks. Okay, so essentially, this is, you know, primarily what a risk rating form would look like. Okay, and again, we should understand the methodology. We should know how to explain it. Who risk rates the countries?
Basil committee.
Okay. In terms of domicile, how do we determine where you are domiciled?
Based on where you live,
Yes. And so-
reside, sorry, not
Right.
on your passport,
Right.
not on your citizenship, based on where you reside.
Right. And so,
And I think there is a time, sorry,
yeah, there is a time frame, you know,
I-
the time frame.
I think it's 3 to 6 months or something like that.
It's 183 days because
That's 6
180 days, yeah, 180 days will take you at 6 months. So they give you
Right.
like 3 days extra. And that's how you determine where the person is domiciled. Okay.
Right. Okay.
That's called a reasonableness test.
Okay.
Right? And it's very difficult to do the reasonableness test because we don't ask for those pages in the passport, correct? We just ask the client. We don't look for the immigration stamp to really see, like Shakira, who said that she was in the Bahamas, right? And then she was charged for tax evasion of Spain, right?
Right.
And she tried to say that she was in the Bahamas for 183 days. However, she was on tour. And so they were
Right.
able to prove that, right? And so she got charged with tax evasion. Okay.
So a lot of it sometimes too is just accepting. Well, they use the proof of address, right? But I guess that simply just proves that you have a
bill?
presence in a
Okay,
particular
so let me
jurisdiction.
ask you with this proof of address, can a tourist walk into Alive and get a phone? They could get a postpaid
I
number,
positive.
right?
I think they
yes.
can get prepaid, but the postpaid is different, eh?
Yeah, but if they give their Alive or their cable bill, or does that mean that they are resident or have citizenship in the Bahamas?
No.
No.
Okay. Yeah, so
No.
that's what's happening across the globe. Like I said, the Bahamas, the
sorry.
UAE, Thailand.
Hello.
Hi.
Sorry, Ms. Bullard, you're saying that, sorry, when you go to the phone companies, you don't need to show proof of address, correct?
Correct, but they then give you a bill for your phone bill, right? And they
Yeah.
send it to whatever address you say is yours, whether it's yours or not, right?
They sell it to your
Oh,
email though, right?
Right, because
So,
your
but you
email
could,
bills.
even if it's to your email, you could tell them that you live in Carmichael Road. They could tell you, no, you don't approve that you live
Yes,
in Carmichael
right.
Road. Now
That's
you have
true.
a bill for Carmichael Road,
I
And
have to
Miss
pull up
Bullet,
my bill to see that though.
right? And
Miss
so,
Bullet,
yes,
that's also the reason why they don't use the telephone bill anymore as proof of address because they don't visit a physical location to verify that you live there.
correct, correct.
So what
What
I wish
what a,
Gail will do that.
So what about all the people who live in Eleuthera and its general delivery?
Because
No,
that's
it
what
was a big
BTC bills
problem.
have.
Yeah,
BTC
it was
bills
a big,
have
no,
general delivery on it.
but let me tell you what happened. At one institution, they had very high, sorry.
Daddy, come in, give me a second.
Hi, could you mute your mic, please? Let me see who this is. Who talking banana?
Miss Bullet, that's me, my daughter. I'm just putting up home. I'm gonna log off and then come back on
Okay,
through my laptop.
Okay, mute your mic for us, please.
All right, no, I'm logging off. Then I go come back on through my laptop.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, so, what was I gonna say? Yeah.
You're talking about
In-
the Luther and general delivery?
Talk on the bills.
And so a lot of when they had to repossess, or a lot of, they had a high delinquency, and when they looked at the files and tried to figure out where these people lived, especially if there was a new manager in the branch or a new salesperson, everybody just said Central Pines or Marshall Abaco or general delivery. And so what happened was the managers had to agree that they would visit and verify proof of address on the islands. And luckily the islands are small and the customer numbers are small. It was still a grand task. This was back in the day. And so just like how Cable Bahamas asks you, give me directions to your house, on the family islands now, that's what they're doing. I mean, in one particular company, you have to give a direction and the manager has to commit, or the salesperson has to commit, like on the weekend or in the evenings, to go and verify and say the color of your house or what have you, in order to, so collections will have this information. Yeah, so because it was a big problem with they didn't care before. The collections department needed the information. After that, then they insisted that, it be verified. So like I said, the tax jurisdictions are Thailand, the UAE, the Bahamas. And so immediately you would see people, when FACA and CRS came along, persons just said now they have citizenship in these countries. And of course, we know the requirement for our country. You buy a house, 750,000. And again, that's still cheaper than paying your country 20 to 30% each year. And so a lot of persons are doing that. Okay. And these are millionaires. They ain't broke like us.
Miss
So
Bullet,
they buy 3 houses and it not even feel it. Yes, go ahead.
so you're saying the proof of address from the telephone bill is not a good, it's not a good
I don't know what
document?
AT&T is do and Verizon, but I sure know BTC and Alive and verifying no address to give you a bill. And that's the most common thing that a person's bringing, right? So, I mean, it just,
Yeah.
again, if you've been accepting it all along and you have not had an issue, and again, like I say, with CRS and FACA, do you really need proof of address? Because that form is a legal form now that can stand up in court. There's a specific form. So once you can prove domicile, then, and I guess that's the way you do prove it, by letting them bring in a bill and confirming where they have citizenship. So,
Interesting.
but we have a lot of, like I say, a lot of clients that they have Swiss passports, but Bahamian citizenship. So you have to get that naturalization card, and you have to make sure it's not expired. You have to get that spouse permit, make sure it's not expired. Because remember, I told you all the case where we had the person say that he was Bahamian, he was from Canada. We got the subpoena. He filled out the W-8 form saying that he was Bahamian, and then we got charged with collusion because he said, "Oh, I applied and it was denied because I was out on bail." Right? So you want to make sure that proof of citizenship, you get that within the 30 days. Okay, like I say, sometimes you work with government, sometimes you work with very large companies, and it's difficult to get all the signees and to get all the information. So the law does allow you 30 days, but I can tell you, once you open an account, it's like blood, sweat, and tears to get any information from these clients, you know. But again, if you want to stay open and you want to make money, that's the, you know, all in doing business is what you have to go through. Okay. Come on, there are a lot of pages that you should have been reading. There should be some questions. Give me some feedback on chapter 6. It can't be clear as mud already. Right? And so again, like I said, in order to fill out this form, you have to ensure that the information that you get makes sense, and you corroborate it, because a lot of times, like I say, salespersons will want low risk customers only. They don't want high risk customers where they have to do the enhanced due diligence, and then the company too may be at its limit and cannot take any more high risk customers. And so therefore you want to ensure that the information that you get is correct and that it's not being manipulated. Okay. Is this clear? Anybody
Yeah.
else?
What I have an asterisk here where it says companies are encouraged to take a risk-based approach to customer due diligence rather than a rules-based. The rules-based approach is what the organization has set up internally. Is that what that means?
No, before the laws changed in 2018, it used to be a rules-based approach. It was a check the box approach. It was yes or no to questions that grouped everybody into like a blanketed amount. Is this, remember the threshold of 15,000? So even if you only made $50 a week, you could deposit up to 15,000 without being questioned. Does that mean that you aren't money laundering? No, you only make $50 a week. Are you happy that the threshold is 15,000? And so that was the rule. The rule was if it wasn't over 15,000, or back, it was, like I said, it was 5,000, so they deposited $499. Then it was 10,000 and they deposited $999. Now it's 15,000, they deposited $14.99, right? So we eliminated the thresholds and say, hey, when this person walks into the bank, they open out an account, they generate a profile, you corroborate their information, and if he only making $50 a week and he brings in 10,000, that should ring a bell. If he brings in 1,000, you should be questioning him as to where did this excess funds come from, correct?
Right.
Yeah. So that's rules versus risk.
Now, this risk classification, I don't know if I'm moving ahead of you here about the risk classifications, the schematic section. I didn't quite grasp what they mean by use a simple risk classification for certain customers versus an expansive risk classification schematic for high risk customers. Like, I'm not what I don't understand is where am I finding the guideline for an expansive risk classification schematic?
Okay, again, remember it's simplified due diligence versus enhanced due diligence, right? And so you would some of the categories that may be on the simplified due diligence does not necessarily have to be like on the enhanced. And so persons, you know, they're trying to say, make it simple, understandable, and explainable.
Okay, so I
You-
should add enhance the risk classification schematic. Or say enhance as opposed to expand.
Yeah, like
Okay.
make it.
I thought this was like a new term, like I'm not,
No,
you know.
no.
Okay.
But smaller institutions as well as larger institutions will have high, medium, or low. There are some institutions that, you know, try open accounts with us, right? And when they open accounts with us, we ask them to send their AML directive, right? And a copy of how they risk rate their clients. And you would see, we would send back questions like, there's no condition for PEPs. There's no condition for high-risk countries or something to that effect. And, or there's no category, then I should say not condition. And they would come back and say, PEPs are not in our appetite, so there's no need for us to have it. You see what I mean? Or
Right.
these countries are not in our, you know, in our appetite. Because we say, when we looked at your methodology, they say, no, we do not include, you know, there's 195 countries that are risk rated on the Basil Committee. They
Right.
only include in their methodologies the countries that are in their appetite.
Okay.
You know, so that's why it's important to understand the methodology, what categories are there, and again, you tailor it to your business, right? And so the law says, you know, if you don't meet the client, you must have the highest, not that overall that person will be high risk, because in my business, we don't ever meet the client. We always have the external asset manager. So that would be every customer would be high risk. So just that category would add to the risk rating. Some companies say, oh, that's not meant for us because we always meet the client, like the commercial banks. The client always walks in and opens the account, right? They don't have external asset managers or people all over the world opening accounts for them. Okay, and talk back to me, give me some feedback. Come on. We're supposed to read and ask questions.
Makes sense.
What makes sense? Go ahead, Brittany.
Ms. Willard, I think I had a similar question to Joey about the risk classification schematic. Like, I'm looking at the table that they give in the book, but does that have to do with does that have to do with the same idea that the higher the risk, the lower the level of tolerance when it comes to an organization?
Sorry, Brittany, can you repeat your question? I didn't quite understand your question.
Okay, so okay, I'm looking at this table that's in the book at the end of the chapter. It has the risk class, it has it as low, medium, and high. And then in the low category, they have lower bound is at 0, and then upper bound, they have 40. In the medium category, they have 41, and then upper bound, they have 80. And then at high, they have 81, and low and upper bound, they have 100. So I was wondering if that's the same concept as the higher the level of risk that an organization takes on, the lower the level of tolerance, or is that different?
Okay, so it's just an example of how you can tailor the risk or the risk rating to your business. So you can say from 0 to 40 will be low risk. From medium risk will be from 40. Like, remember now, the say there are normally 10 categories.
Right.
Each category, and again, we look back at the risk rating. So these are the categories: nationality, domicile, professional sector, business activity. And each one of these will give a scoring, right?
Right.
When these scores add up, you get a total at the bottom,
Mhm.
right? And it's just saying, if the total comes between 0 and 40, you can consider that customer low risk.
Low risk.
If it's between 41 and 80, high risk. I mean, medium risk. And if it's between 81 and 100, then high risk. I use 75 and some people use 50 and what have you. But again, you just have to tailor it to your business and be able to explain its methodology.
Okay. I think I
Okay.
understand it a little bit more now.
Okay, great. Yeah. So again, like I said, your company's overall risk rating would be dependent on your portfolio. So if you have 90% high risk clients, how do you think your organization will be risk rated?
Risk.
What was the question? Ms.
High
Bullock?
risk.
Right. So 90% of your clients are high risk. How is your company going to be risk rated?
Very high.
risk.
Very
That's
high.
high, very high.
Right, right, right. So in
90
your
is very
appetite,
high.
yeah. So when you open up these accounts, you have to, maintain some statistics. You have to know exactly who is in your portfolio and how they are risk rated and the percentage that is already high risk, and you need to check. This may be Joey Dean may want to open an account. She may have $10 million and she's very reputable, and of course we want to do business
Amen.
with her, right? She has $10 million, right? And we want to do business with her, but she is a PEP, and we already have 7 PEPs. Right.
Speaking of PEPs, because you had said that in the guidelines in terms of onboarding, organizations should limit how many of a particular client they have, such as PEPs. That means if your number is 30 and you're at 30, that means a new PEP want to, be onboarded. The institution should not take on a new PEP.
No, it's up to the board. It's up to the board.
Oh.
Just know that there are consequences for your decision. You can take on all the PEPs. However,
Right.
the consequence is that your business will be now risk rated high risk, and now you will be subjected to enhanced due diligence and an audit for a bank. If Deloitte & Touche coming in and doing an external audit, that was
Mhm.
$150,000. Are you going to pay Deloitte $150,000 each year to audit your bank? Because you have.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You see what I mean?
Yeah. So my advice to the board would be essentially what you're saying.
Yeah.
That if
yeah,
we take
you
on
may-
additional PEPs, XYZ could be the outcome.
I say you could take on the whole government. However, this is what it's going to cost you.
Right.
So if
That is
you
what the
are-
compliance or the risk person should be saying to the board in order for
Yeah,
them to make
yeah,
an
and
executive
then-
decision.
Yeah, you refer them to finance to say, tell them how much PEPs cost you on average. And so you have to ensure that their pricing is in line because it's going to cost you,
Okay.
and enhanced due diligence has to be done on that. And so again, you need, whereas the juniors can handle the medium and the low risk, you need now a senior to manage these accounts, to complete risk reviews annually, to carry out enhanced due diligence annually. So you have to ensure that you price those accounts properly, because it's going to cost you 3 times as much as a low or medium account. Okay, in terms of the seniority of the person managing the account and all the work that has to be done, you may need to hire a senior and an assistant to do all those reviews. And then remember, one particular company that I worked with, they used to use Proximal. Each Proximal report was $1,500 per person. And so when you have the government of St. Kitts, there are 4 members of parliament signing on that account. All of them had to, So the $6,000 just for us to tell you, no, Shane Gibson corrupt or has this litigation against him. No, we cannot open up this account for you. Right? Yeah. So
I didn't quite understand the math on the income. Sorry, it says if customer ABC Imports has an expected monthly dollar volume of 50,000 incoming, right? And 40,000 outgoing, then profile-based monitoring would result in a flag only in the following circumstances, where the income then exceeds to 75,000 and it has equal expected income of 50,000 times 50% tolerance. I'm not understanding the tolerances.
again, it's tailored to, again, this is an example that they put in the book, whereas you see,
I say that because sorry, Miss Bullitt. Let me try to explain my rationale a little bit more. If ABC Imports has a dollar volume of 50,000, right? But it goes up to an additional 25,000 in that month. To me, that's not a flag.
okay, because when it goes to, it gives you the tolerance levels of, so that's where the 50% comes in, because it's a medium risk customer.
Because, okay, no, I'm not understanding. I'm
Okay,
not understanding, sorry.
okay, right
If it goes,
above, so it says, note the following example.
right,
Low risk tolerance is 80%, medium risk tolerance is 50%, high risk tolerance is 20%.
okay, so if the average incoming sum is $50,000, right? And you're saying within the month of October, I went up to 25,000. That means that 25,000 represents a 50% increase in what my tolerance should have been.
No, okay, so remember now, it really depends on if your account is operational or not. Let's just give a scenario where you open an account, it's supposed to be for savings, right? And if the purpose is for savings, why are you having more than 50% of what your account holding is? You say you're going to deposit 50,000 a month, right?
Right.
But then you indeed do that, but then you withdraw 40,000, right? And so you've exceeded the 50% tolerance level, right? Because that's 90% of what you should have had on the account, correct?
You mean you saying I withdraw or I deposit an additional 40?
Well, it says the monthly dollar volume of 50,000 incoming and 40,000 outgoing, then profile-based monitoring would result in a flag if the following thresholds were exceeded.
Hi, where are we reading from, please? Sorry.
Relative
page
risk weights. This is 51 in the book.
Okay.
At the bottom, it gives some figures and numerical signs and
All right.
percentages.
Yeah.
Right,
Right.
so if you were 50% of the 50,000 is the 25,000, right?
25, an additional
Right.
25, right?
Right, so what they're basically saying is, if you don't, even though you said 50, you would have given a guesstimation or an assumption that, you know what I mean? And so
Right.
before they question you, remember now, if you're dealing with 800 customers, you know, you can't, every flag, like I said, 90% of the flags are non flags. You know, there's one or two that may turn into an STR, right? So
Okay.
false positive flags, right? But it takes time to sit down and go through all these flags, right? So what basically this example is saying, listen, you say 50,000, but we will give you, if you don't exceed 75,000, we will not block your account and call you and tell you to declare the source of funds.
I understand. Okay. Okay.
You see?
I think I get it now.
And then
So
even though you say you're gonna only send out 40,000, we give you an extra, we have, you know, if 50% of 40,000 is 20,000. And so if you don't exceed 60,000, then we, you know, the same thing, we won't, you know, consider it a hit then.
okay.
So again, it's just a range. It's a range, not if you go over, you know, and again, like I said, this is just to say how you should operate in your institution. Like everything isn't hard and fast and written in stone, or else, like I said, you already get a lot of hits, first of all. Second thing is that most of the hits are gonna be false positive. And so you're not spending the entire day just, you know, proving that hits are not legitimate. You can put a tolerance level in there to say, you know, yeah, Ms. Bullitt said she will deposit 50,000. We'll let her go up to 75. If she goes over 75, then it's a flag and we consider it suspicious.
Okay.
Because it says once a customer has been signed a risk class, a tolerance is applied to the expected incoming and outgoing volumes for profile monitoring purposes. So again, you can put this tolerance in the system. It doesn't have to be. We corroborate 50,000, you know, on the dot. Because like I said, you will get thousands of hits. And even though you have these tolerances in place, you still get thousands of hits, right?
Right.
We was getting like some 200-300. We had, like I say, 800 clients, and we was name checks and transactions, and you like I say, you get like 200 hits a day, right? And out of the 200, 190 is false positives, right? But can you imagine what goes into proving that they are false, false positives? Like one person, if you deal with countries like Mexico and the Latin American countries, everybody named De Silva or Jose, right? And so this Jose De Silva went to prison in Mexico. Again, the newspaper did not say Jose De Silva, date of birth, blah, 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 right?
Right.
And so I had to do a full investigation on Jose De Silva to make sure it was none of the 5 Jose De Silvas in our system, right? And I could not, I looked all over. I went to the Mexican Supreme Court and all over trying to find this date of birth. I could not find it, right? So I had no choice but to fill out an STR and send it to the FIU. And my STR simply said, I have 5 Jose De Silvas. The internet did not confirm, nor did the Mexican Supreme Court confirm that the date of birth of this Jose De Silva. Can you liaise with the FIU in Mexico and find out the date of birth of the person that was charged, so I can then confirm that it's none of our Jose De Silvas.
Right. In the risk rating framework, it has here that periodic reviews should be done for, I guess, high-risk customers. Is there a standard time for reviewing, like every 6 months or annually?
Annually, for all high risk, annually. A complete
Okay.
review must be completed.
All right.
That's where you print out all the transactions. Like your system would have given you some hits if they went outside their thresholds. But like I said, I think in the first risk class, I said, go to work, find out what your system does, find out how savvy it is, because sometimes the system is not that savvy. The system to open an account with us was 250,000. And so the system just basically said, anybody who had 100,000 who transferred 100,000 or more, give us a hit, right? But that didn't mean persons didn't have a profile where they only were supposed to be transferring $50 and what have you, okay, or 50,000. Okay, so most of the time the system is blanketed, okay? And from 218, when the law changed, everybody's still saying, if you don't deposit more than 15,000, we ain't concerned about declaring the source of funds. But we have the peanut boys and the car wash boys and the people who's only make 210. How are they depositing 15,000 and nobody's questioning them, right? And that, we learned about smurfing, where persons they'll deposit $10,000, but they'll do $2,000 each week. That will add up to 10,000 or add up, so they're doing smaller amounts. Remember, Bin Laden lives for 10 years undetected. You tell me he used no bank at all? Okay, we learned from Dirty Money that how they allowed the Mexican drug lords to have those accounts. They hyphenated the name or put a little comma or an asterisk in it, right? And so the system never flagged those names. So do we know if there's an operation person knowing that there are how many persons in this class? 13 persons here, and these are the 13 persons that are supposed to be here each week. Okay, y'all notice that McDonald is say, this is me, because her name is showing up as Lulu. Right? Y'all remember when
That's my middle name.
Right, when Bakan came in this class, I was afraid. I was like, Bakan? That's not a familiar name, right? And I said, Bakan, identify yourself. Y'all remember?
I remember.
Right. Okay, and so that's exactly what happens. It could be changing name, hyphenated, all sorts of stuff. The system does not pick it up. So back to my request, go to your institutions. Find out if the names are being scanned every night, because the risk assessment is only as good as the day it's done. Ms. Bullitt is teaching this class right now, and I could go out and commit a crime right after. You all see me? It could take but 3 weeks before or they don't even show you on TV no more. Y'all can hear the name and y'all can say, well, you know, if that's a lecturer, I could be teaching from prison and y'all didn't even know I locked up, right? So you have to go and check. What does the system do? Is it blanketed? Is there just one amount and only persons over a certain amount get to fly? What is my responsibility? Who is to check? Who is to safeguard the institution? Okay, we know now we move from the thresholds in 218. I don't know if anybody do any work in 2020. I don't know what if we made it to 2020 and that was it. But now reviews has the reviews been completed? How many high risk accounts do we have? How many low? How many medium? Do we even know? Who's responsible? Okay, and so when you complete that review, if you don't know how the system is tracking the transactions, you are to print out from January to December, and you are to look. This says this account is for school fees. I see payments, the school fee amount is this. I see consistent payments going quarterly to school fees or monthly, however it's paid, okay, in March. Or I see another transfer and I can't determine, this person only makes $2,000 a month, but they deposited 10,000. Okay, I could go in the file and I could see that they declared the source of funds or they didn't. So I need to call them up on the phone and say, hey, back in April, you deposited this 10,000. Where did it come from? Okay, and that's what the review process is about. But guess what? All of us are overworked and underpaid, and we don't have time to do reviews. And we definitely ain't catch up with the law changes in 218. So we don't even have structure in place. Persons aren't even assigned accounts. We don't know who's supposed to do what. Sat 10 hours in the department and whoever get the email, whoever available, completes the transaction. So none of us really know 800 clients. Okay, because no proper metrics are in place. when we risk rated, we didn't understand how the risk rating form worked. We didn't realize there were 10 copies. We didn't realize that the Basil Committee updates their list every year, and my risk rating form says 2003 version. That means the country ratings don't change each year, some of them, and we never did the change. And that's why it's important to understand the methodology, because you have to go and check your source data. If you're getting country risk ratings from the Basil Committee, then if they update every year you must do a review and make sure the ratings that you have attached under your countries are still the same. Under the services, under the marijuana right now is considered very high risk, but if it's legal all around the world, will it still remain high risk? So are the cash money services businesses, they're considered high risk. But now that they have the sand dollar and other digital assets, they're less cash intensive. Will they really truly remain high risk? Okay, so all these things have to be reviewed. Okay. Is that clear?
Yep.
Okay, so no questions?
No.
Okay, so remember I said we would look at what the Securities Commission had sent out.
Must
And
put
so-
one question, but before we move on, I looked at the question, the classwork, like the question for this class, it says, identify the risk categories.
Okay, and we just talked about the risk categories. What are the categories?
High, medium, and low.
Right,
No.
so,
No. On the left of the form, when we looked at the form, I said these are the categories.
Nationality, domicile,
Yes.
that's it, right?
Yes.
That's not profile.
it says, the categories, is that the high, medium, and low risk? Is that what you mean?
No, the categories are nationality, where you do business, the type of account, how much money you're gonna deposit if you met the customer.
Okay.
I have that as risk profile. Okay. Ooh.
Wow, okay.
I have that as, okay.
I know the book refers to it as customer types.
No risk profile for customers, geographical location, origin, nature of business, account activity, account pattern activity.
Which page are you on, reading from? I didn't see that.
That's 45.
45. 45.
Oh, my
It
favorite.
says, okay, it says, based on the relationship and level of assessed risk, customer due diligence information usually includes the following: who is the customer? What's the geographical location? The nature of the business? The source of funds, the source of wealth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, okay, don't get confused by the terminology. It says developing a profile. Okay, so
Just before that. Okay,
You know
so
the
when
risk criteria is on 45. Geographical origin of the customer.
yeah, I have that as risk profile. Oh, it says when determining the profile, consider these
right.
factors.
Yeah, so
Okay.
they normally say types, or classifications or categories.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, but that's what the question is asking. Repeat the question again.
It says, identify the risk categories that should be considered on the risk rating form.
Okay.
Explain the
Yeah.
methodology and the scoring system.
So those categories are nationality, where you do business, type of account, business activity, and you would give an explanation of, where you could find this information.
And that's on page 49, right? Because it says risk profile. It says risk profile.
It says customer, example of a risk profile or risk rating, or customer risk profile. This is the example of the profile. There are various categories or activity types or account types or customer types, okay, that make up the entire profile. So they refer to the actual risk rating form as a customer risk profile. Okay, so it's just a different use of terminology. But that question is asking for the categories.
So Ms. Bullet, the categories wouldn't be like customer types, account types, activity types, and that wouldn't be the categories?
That actually on the form. Remember, we just looked at the form, right?
Yeah.
So when I was saying these are the categories on the left and I said that at the beginning of the class, and everybody's saying, yes, Ms. Bullet, we understand you, this is clear, but then it ain't clear.
I remember you saying the categories for sure. But the thing was, when you look at the book, in the book, some things can be a little confusing.
I was understanding the categories to
I
be
logged on
your-
late, Ms.
your-
Bullet. Why I didn't catch that piece when you were saying that.
I was understanding it to mean that the categories mean that the customer is classified as a high, medium, or low, but then the rating, the profile, your profile would depend on, where you live, what you do, how much income is coming into the account, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
Like
so
you have your
that-
nationality, where your domicile and that sort of stuff.
The
I thought that
professional
fell in the
section.
profile. Right.
Yeah, so the question is it normally asks for classifications or categories. So
Okay.
I hope this is clear and I hope everybody listens. So on the exam, we are not confused of,
Mm-hmm.
So it's a 10-point essay. You can't write it on low, medium, or high.
Okay.
Okay, but you gotta explain the
It's an
nationality
essay
comes from
on
the
the
Basil
exam,
Committee.
another essay?
Sorry?
There's another essay on the exam, a separate.
How many essays on the
Separate.
exam?
4, right?
4. You have
4
10
essays?
One
choices.
is mandatory. One is mandatory.
No, it's 5 and 1 is mandatory.
5. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got plenty writing to do.
The intro was 7 essays. I can't believe somebody from intro completed, but how much essays?
No, I wasn't an intro.
Oh, okay. Yeah, intro was 7.
Lord God, y'all trying to make people an author, hey, Miss Bullet.
That's why you practice it for homework. Because you practice it for homework and classwork.
This is not a class to become Mark Twain.
What you could do when you get to ICA and you have to write 3,500 words?
That's a different story. I write up
Okay.
people.
And guess what? All this is practice. It's just
Yeah.
practice, so you can figure out if I can't write 1,000 words or 1 page, it's no use I go on. So this is why we implemented classwork and homework.
But Miss Bullard, only the major 20.1 is the 1,000 words, eh? The other ones are not 1,000.
No. On the exam, it's no more than a page and a half. 2
Yeah,
pages.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. No, only in homework is 1,000 to 1,200 words. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And ICA is 3,500 words each essay, and you have to write 6.
Lord of mercy.
I had.
No. You type those and then you submit them. But they are marked.
Oh.
Miss Bullard, did you have you had the chance to have a look at the assignments?
I started them. You'll get your grade back on Friday evening.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
How are they looking, Miss Bullard?
They're
Are
good
we
so
on the
far.
right track?
I got a lot last night, so the ones I got, I remember I only had 2 to start off with, and the cross marker just sent them. So, yeah, they were fine so far. The 2 that I looked at, everybody else sent it last night. There was only 2 persons who said they didn't want to redo. Correct?
Yeah, it was
Correct.
me and someone else.
Yeah. So fine, so far so good. But you'll get feedback and everything on Friday.
Ms. Bullard,
Yeah.
back to the risk rating.
Yes.
The slots for the category, the actual rating, right? You said that is based on, let's say for nationality, right? For the holder 1. Yeah.
Okay, so if
That category is C9, right?
yes.
Right, for
This is
nationality 1.
if you're a company, you start at C9.
Okay, the company, let's say the
Yeah,
company.
but if
and the
it's just an
company is-
individual, then you start at C18.
Right, but let's say C9, which is a company, and that company is out of Venezuela, right?
Yeah.
You're getting that number from where?
Okay, so we're getting that from the Basil committee. So on the back side of this form, the risk ratings were taken from the Basil committee, and whatever the country rating is for Venezuela will show up in this section. So they are dropped there. This is just a picture of a copy I tried to get so you could see. So you would see Venezuela would pop up, and I think their risk rating is like 9 point something. And so the most points you could get in this section is 10. So of course you get the full 10 points right here.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
And
Okay.
so it just depends on every category. So if the company is registered in Venezuela, it's going to be high overall because all companies, 90% of the companies out of Venezuela are joint ventures with the government. The government owns 60% and the company owns 40%. And so because the government is majority owner, it's going to be high risk. And so PDVSA is the oil and gas company there. And whether you dig the holes or have the line or the cabling or the plumber, like the whole country works for PDVSA. Heavily sanctioned. Yeah, heavily sanctioned. But you have to understand, and that's what a lot of people miss. This is a joint venture with the government, and the government owns 60%, then you're PEP. So you already high risk.
Okay.
Yeah, so all those who have those PDVSA accounts, they are high risk because the government of Venezuela does not give you a business license. Like out of Bahamas, government gives you a business license and you go about your business. No, for the oil company, which is 90% of the businesses, the government owns the majority shares. So you're a PEP.
Okay, I have another question. Given, okay, let's say this is the Bahamas commercial bank, and you have a PEP, right? Let's say Shane Gibson, okay? And you know that he's an MP, so you know his salary. But he gets $100,000 transferred this account, allegedly, or let's just suppose, we're just pretending, right? And he got $100,000 transferred to his account. Does that, you as the account officer, you're supposed to report that to your
Okay.
compliance officer or
the compliance department should have gotten a flag if it was outside of his profile. So at onboarding, when he opened the account, even though his MP salary is only 28,000, and let's just say he didn't hold any other offices, they would have asked, what's your other source of income? And he may say, I'm chairman of the board or something else or what have you. And then they ask for a job letter. Then he may say, I have rental income. So they ask for a copy of the lease agreements to determine, so his profile would have proved why he could get in excess of the $28,000 member of parliament salary, right? But if it doesn't, remember, we just looked at the example in the book where it says there's a tolerance level for high,
the tolerance
medium,
level
or low.
was right, but the
Yeah.
tolerance
It's
high,
20%.
20%, yes.
Yeah, 20%. So 20% of that would only give him like about 30,000 he's supposed to deposit. So before you question him, okay? And so therefore you ask him if it's outside of the profile, you don't see any rental income or anything. And like I say, these profiles would be gravely deficient because we all the laws just changed and we still on a learning curve. So right now it's time to do reviews and do them properly. Right. And so now you have to call him and ask him what are the sources of income and make him prove it. If he doesn't prove it, then he is to declare the source of funds for the $100,000 or the $100,000 that, and he could have sold a piece of property. He could have gotten an inheritance. We are not to assume upfront that it's money laundering. The man was just clear. This might be the money the government done pay him for his legal fees. Now, when you see him bringing that stuff and say, this from the Bahamas government for my legal fees, you read that in the news already, right? And you can't turn your nose up. You take the man money and you put it on his account. He earned that, right? You have paid that. So, yeah, so just like, you just ask him to declare the source of funds. You don't automatically assume, that it's money laundering. So you do a little review of the account.
And of course, as a customer relations individual, a customer officer, not customer officer, client representative, I'm not sure what they're called in the bank, but you're not actually tracking these files. You're saying that there's an alert that happens?
Yeah, so in the background, the compliance department, whenever there's a hit, an amount outside of the customer's profile, they should get an alert. Remember, I was saying that's where the 90% of those alerts are false positives. You do spend all day investigating to find out that it was a legitimate transaction. So what I'm saying is in many institutions now, the laws just changed in 18 and nobody did anything in 2020 and we didn't believe we had to do all these things. So we are on a learning curve. You will find that most files are gravely deficient, and so before you call anybody or file any STRs, you need to update your files, and you update your files by doing client reviews, making sure the profiles make sense, making sure they're seeing a profile. This person opened this account in 1999 when they was in college, and now they're getting salary, and so we telling them they money laundering because they was only depositing $50. Now they depositing $500. So I would start with a review process first, in accordance with what your regulator says, and then after you see, you can find a lot of people outside their profile, and after they update it and can't prove it, then you start to question, what's really happening across these accounts. Then you'll dig up and you'll find all the PEPs, a lot of stuff out there that we didn't do properly, but now is the time to do it properly and do the reviews. and make sure the reviews are scheduled and they are completed. Because a lot of times the review is outstanding for 10 years. Okay, Rosalind, you want to ask a question?
Yes, I wanted to know when an STR is sent up, right? And I'm not sure if I have the process or the steps correctly. It goes to MLRO and they send it to the FIU, right?
Correct.
What investigation, like, what do they do? Do they call the client to ask him to verify the money, or how
No,
do they go about?
No. You are the, whoever is the account officer should call the client before the SDR is sent, because there's compliance is not on the front line, right? And so essentially, if the account officer is monitoring the account as they should, then they should see that there's a transaction outside of the profile, right? And if there's a transaction outside of the profile, immediately you conduct a client review and to make sure nothing needs to be updated. And after you make sure the passports don't expire or the signatures are correct, and it's just this one transaction outside of the profile, or it may be a number of transactions, you, like I say, you complete the review and the review will prove a lot of things to you. Then if it's still a STR that needs to be filed, you fill out your company's internal form. But if that account file is not up to date, you will get right up for that account not being up to date. If that client review is not complete, they will make mention that the account review is past due for 3 years. You know, and so all of this, you will have some something to answer to along with that investigation. So that's a part of the MLRO's investigation. You know, so like I said before, you do everything you need to do first, then you fill out the suspicious, because you would have done your checks and balances. Then you go to the MLRO and they will investigate, double check everything that you did already. But if the account information is expired and you haven't checked the transactions, then you could be in some problems.
So what I want to understand, right? Like, let's say I'm a teller, because I remember when I was a teller, we would have clients where, okay, let's say Miss Bullet has an account with us, and Miss Bullet explained to us that she will have $2,500 come to her account monthly, right? And then 3 months later, we noticed Miss Bullet come into the bank, and once every 3 weeks, she bring in $9,999, of course, because she don't want to meet the $10,000 threshold, right? So I noticed Miss Bullet come to me 2 weeks ago with the same amount of money, and she depositing, and I sent out a STR. When it gets to what I want to understand is, I know as on the front line, you can't tip the client off by telling them, well, hey, don't deposit the $10,000, and that's where the client will change their mind and say, well, no, let me just deposit the $9,900. So you don't tip the client off. But what I want to know is, what do the back end do? Like, is there a police investigation? Is there someone that called the client to verify, hey, where did you get this money from? Like, how do they go about it?
Right. Well, again, like I said, the account officer, whoever is assigned to the account, should make sure that the file is up to date and make sure they have current. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry? Yeah, the account
person
officer is responsible. That's the first line of defense. The account officer is responsible. And so all their files should be up to date. All their client reviews should be complete. And so a lot of times, like you say, that person is walking in. But if you just have wires coming in, then compliance will get a hit and see. And compliance should have been getting a hit on that $9.99. You see what I mean? Because that's considered smurfing. And so they should have a report called a smurfing report that spits out anybody who trying to go right below the thresholds. That's why they eliminated thresholds. But I had a report and that would show the smurfing. And so in the background, my investigation starts with the file. And you would find that once we have the file, once compliance have the files, the account officer scrambling, trying to get the file and say, oh, I have some information I was supposed to put on the file. And now they trying to update it. So you have to ensure our investigation is checking the file, making sure everything is updated for us to have correct and up-to-date information on the SDR form. to fill out, and 2 classes from now, or maybe next week, we're gonna look at the STR form. So you're gonna see the information that's required, and you will see the reason why the file has to be up to date. And then we do our own investigation internally, check the transactions, and because we have to write an entire essay to the FIU to tell them exactly why this transaction is outside of the profile and why we consider it suspicious. And then we submit that form, and the FIU then reviews it, and then they turn it over to the police, which I guess work along with the FIU, and the police does an investigation. And then they come back and they say, yay or nay, whether or not they find interest in
I think what I'm right. And I think what I'm curious about is, what do the police do? Like, do the police go and find out where this person get this money from, or
no,
do
what they do, no, this is what they do. They send us a production order, right? Through the FIU. So then they ask us to produce the transactions, right? And produce the file. So they say, send us all the KYC and send us the profile that they established the account with. And so they verify everything that they say. Ms. Bullitt say she sell peanuts, she deposited $50 a week. Now she bring $9.99 for 3 weeks, right? And so once they see that transaction, then they start to investigate outside of the bank. So, but the bank produces, and then they may send a disclosure order where they ask for a statement.
Okay.
Right, and then that's how they do their investigation, I guess. And then when they have sufficient information, then they go and pick the person up and charge them.
Okay.
I have a question, Ms. Bullitt. It's Candy Stubbs. So the compliance officer, they are at the tail end of because what I gathered, they are not the one that do the reporting.
Yeah, but it's the compliance officer is normally the MLRO. The MLRO is the regulated function. Okay, so the MLRO is responsible for completing the SDR. Now, each institution should have an internal form that the frontline or the manager will fill out and send it on to the MLRO, and the MLRO will do an investigation. Now, normally the head of compliance is the MLRO, but in larger institutions, you may have just a regular compliance officer as an MLRO, or somebody as the MLRO if your institution is large. And the smaller ones, the compliance officer, and it's just normally one person, and an assistant is the, is the MLRO, but it just depends on the size of your institution.
Okay.
Yeah, but each policy of that institution says that you are to submit all your internal information to the MLRO, who in turn does an investigation, and that person then, who is registered with the FIU, sends SDRs to the FIU on behalf of the institution.
Okay, I've never in our company, I've never heard MLRO.
MLRO?
Yes, it's always the compliance officer.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The compliance officer is normally the MLRO. Okay, the compliance position does not have to be approved. The regulated function is the MLRO function, the money laundering reporting officer function.
Okay.
Also,
And like
as
I
far
said,
as I
in a
know,
larger institution,
Ms. Bullitt, as far as I know, it's like
just
kind
one
of forbidden to acknowledge who the MLRO is.
Sorry?
Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Jasmine, what's your question?
Isn't it kind of like forbidden to recognize or to announce who the MLRO is?
So every staff is required by law that every staff member know who the MLRO is.
I mean, no,
Not
the
compliance
staff will
officer.
know. The staff will know, but I mean for them to like discuss it with other persons, but the staff
right.
should know. Yeah, because where they're dealing with different things, you don't want them to be singled out or attacked by by those persons.
Yeah, well, see, the compliance, nobody in compliance should speak to customers. And a lot of companies, when transactions are stopped, they say compliance stop it or compliance want that information. You have to change the terminology. The company requires additional information. The company requires 3 days to process your transaction. We have to stop. That's a form of tipping off. We have to stop saying compliance did this and compliance did that to the customers. But
Yeah.
internally, everybody
always
is
say
a
that.
requirement. Yeah, but you have to train them to stop saying that, because that's a form of tipping off. Okay, so
Bullet,
you
Ms.
should say
Bullet,
the company requires additional information.
Yeah, I find that way, I call it basically passing the buck. I find that through, like, where I am, like, just through which any department, anything that is requested of one person. Oh, it's not me, it's what this one wants, is what that one, you know, like,
Yeah.
like they don't work there, they're not a part of the team, and this doesn't, you know,
Yeah. So
they
you have
don't
to say,
believe in it.
yeah, the company requires this or what, and we have to
Yeah,
stop
I
saying
don't like that.
we have to stop it. And so it's a training issue. In training, you have to train them and say, please, there are going to be times when compliance does need more information, or compliance does stop transactions. However, you are not to disclose that to the customer. You are never to ask compliance to speak to the customer. So, yeah. And clients may request that compliance, like when they at account opening, they want to put on a presentation and compliance must come. No, you present to that account officer, and that account officer speaks to compliance. Yeah. Okay, so it's just a training issue. Okay, any questions or concerns? Are we okay with this risk rating? Do we understand how it works?
Yes.
I can say that I'm getting comfortable with it. From this chapter, and based on our discussion, I got comfortable with it. Just
Okay.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's okay.
Okay, let me pull up the country before we go into the national risk rating. Let me pull up the country. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, like I said, with this risk thing, it isn't clear up front. You have to do it a few times, and then it sinks in, hopefully. That's why it's so many chapters. Okay, let's see if I can share this screen. Okay, can see the screen?
Sharing, yes.
Okay. Okay, so let's go down and see. Did I come to the right place? Okay, let's visit. Okay. So this is the Basil Index, and Transparency International does the same thing, right? And so they have a map of, it's 195 countries that they have risk rated. This is the legend on the side. It says low risk of the green areas, Australia, parts of Canada, yellow, the medium, and
Joshua.
the red is 7.7 and above, or perhaps 7.5. Okay, so that's the legend. That's how you would read the map. Okay, of course, we see some red right there. We see Haiti, right? And some red, and then we should be, where are we? Bahamas, we see we are 6.46. So we are.
Shouldn't we be green?
Not according to the world, right? And so, yeah, so 6.46. But primarily, it looks like everybody is medium, for the most part. And, you know, some countries are green, okay? But we have to make sure that this does not go up to 7, okay? And so the governor has put some things in place to ensure that we don't go up to 7, okay? So again, of course, no country wants to be high risk. Haiti will fight, nobody does business with Haiti anyway, right? But these are the Congo, of course, and African countries and different countries like this. Of course, they want to know why Cuba, surprisingly, as a sanctioned country, that's surprising. Well, again, Cuba must have fought them and said that you can't risk rate us that way. So methodology, how does it work? All right. And they say, if you have shortfalls in your framework, corruption and bribery, poor financial transparency and standards. And I don't know if you listened to the previous prime minister, every time he spoke, he said it. We're working on accountability and transparency. He said it like 1,000 times, right? Weak political rights and rule of law, but all these things would make you high risk. But it goes down further to tell you there are domains. Domain 1, this is the mutual evaluation agreement, 35%. So we were deficient in 22 of the 40 recommendations. And of course, we know we took a staggered approach because it cost financial services sector to contract. A lot of persons could not afford, like in 2019, when the Compliance Commission started to regulate the non-financial business entities, the law firms, the accounting firms, and the real estate companies and the broker, not the broker dealers. The Higgs and Johnsons could afford a MLRO, but surely Bullitt and Co couldn't afford one, so we just closed down. We didn't have no 50, 60,000 plus a system in place and training and all of this to pay anybody, so we just shut out. So of course we saw banking as our second sector go from 20% to 3%, so we lost 17% GDP. And they're still saying that banking and financial services is our second sector, okay, behind tourism. And we saw what just happened to tourism. So we couldn't just say mutual evaluations, we don't care because you go close out our industries, because this was 65%. And of course, we know that the US State Department International Narcotics Control Strategy report, we are considered a transit country. So already we getting these 5% off the bat. There's nothing we can do about it. Of course, we have a tax problem, even though we put in FACA and CRS, they are still behind us because the only tax we have is VAT. Our borrowing is very high. They saying that we need another corporate tax. And so therefore, pretty much that 30% is already there. So we had no choice but to fix these 22 deficient recommendations. So we would have 65% that we would have been high risk already. So this is their methodology. This is how they risk rate us as a country. Okay, political and legal risk, public transparency and accountability. And we said it 1 million times. Good thing it's only 1.66%, right? But we needed that, make sure that we had zero in those areas to ensure that they didn't feel that we weren't transparent. The corruption perception index, we know our rating is about 65 or 66, and anything below 45 is high risk. Bribery risk matrix is 81. And of course, I think anything below 45 is high risk. Okay, so this is how they are going to risk rate us as a country. Okay, and so just like audit, we already see the methodology, so we could fix all these things to make sure that when we send them this information, we remain at where we are on this map. Okay. Unfortunately, I mean, as institutions, we get to do that as well. We know the high risk sectors. We know the high risk countries. We say we don't want to do more than 20% with the high risk countries. We don't want to do more than 20% of our business with PEPs, oil and gas, diamonds, bearer shares, or we know overall we will become high risk. So when we approve, we don't just approve willy-nilly, we check our appetite to ensure that our risk isn't greater to the company becomes high risk, okay? So at the government level, the country level, at the company level, we can see the methodologies and make sure we fix them. Now at the client level, the client does not see our methodology. They don't see our categories. They don't know this is how we are risk rating them, right? So the client should not be able to manipulate anything. However, what happens is sales persons go and manipulate information on the forms, and they are trained, and so now they know what to put in place to make sure that the person is in high risk. And so that's what I found in some companies, because on the risk rating they had how many deposits you were going to make, and if you were going to make more than 20 deposits each month, if your account was an operating account, all of that would make you high risk. So say even though the salesperson would know that this information would prove that the customer is high, they manipulated and still put the low risk funds. And then later on, you found out that this was an operating account, and you know, the transactions and the profiles, the transactional history was not in line with what was written in the profile. And so now that's what I'm saying. When we do reviews, we want to look at those transactions. Is this an operating account? Is it, you know, a lot of withdrawals, a lot of deposits? Are they paying bills? Are they paying salaries? You know, and all these things sometimes cause you to be high risk, but you want to make sure that your forms are documented properly. And that's where the big deficiency is. What is written on paper is different from what is happening across the account. Gone are the days that we can allow that. Okay, that's what we going to jail for now, for negligence, for allowing these people, you know, to deposit this money simply because we papered the accounts incorrectly at the onset. Okay, so now it's review time. Repaper the accounts, put the correct information out there, and find out what your system does to help you. If the system does not check the names every night, how often do they check? Is somebody checking at all? If there's just a threshold for anybody who deposit $15,000, what are we doing with the persons who only make $50 a week? Are they allowed to deposit the $15,000 too? You know, so these are the questions that we want to ask. Okay, and find out how it works, because again, we are not smart like the hackers. You know, their job, we sit down from 9 to 5 and we're overwhelmed and overworked. They lock up in their room all day and they find ways to infiltrate our systems. We will be infiltrated. However, our safeguard is to be able to explain ourselves, know what the up-to-date current policy says, or what the regulators say if your policy is out of date, know how the system works, know what the safeguards are, and know what you are supposed to do manually. If you can't explain yourself, you will not go to jail. If you can't explain yourself, you will go to jail. That's just how it works. Okay? Because some people have to go to jail. And all our good politicians were innocent. So that just leaves us, right, guys?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So country level, company level, client level. Good?
Yes, and that's the categories for risk rating.
Sorry?
The country, and that's the categories for risk rating. The country, the organization, and the client.
No, that's the 3 levels that you can be risk rated on. You can be risk
the 3 levels.
Yeah, the categories are, or the classifications are nationality.
Oh, yes, I have that.
Where
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
business. Yeah, please don't let the terminology
Yeah,
confuse
where
you.
business,
Yeah.
business activity.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
no,
Yeah.
right, I got it.
Great.
Okay,
Great.
thanks.
Okay. So let's take a few minutes, y'all. See, this just what has happened. We wanted to talk about the country at the country level, but we had to understand what the book was saying first. And so let's see if it will open. It's okay, it takes a while. Okay, so here it goes. Okay, so that's risk rating. And now we are finished with risk rating. Okay. A chapter or two back, remember we talked about the national risk assessment. Okay, and so this assessment is conducted on the country, right? And the Securities Commission has sent this out as a questionnaire to the industry, and they just wanted feedback from the compliance officer or the CEO or whatever you'd say. It shouldn't take you no more than 30 minutes, but it's very long. But remember, as the Bahamas was trying to complete its risk assessment to send to the Basil Committee in order to be assessed, and this is what these are some of the questions that they asked. So they wanted to ask, what was your sector? And all of these sectors fall under financial services. Any look strange to you? Are we familiar with all these sectors? Y'all there?
Yeah,
Hello?
we can. Yeah, we can.
Looking at them, actually looking at them.
Okay, okay. Go ahead.
Looking at it.
Tell me which one seems strange.
What's a registered representative?
Dealer in precious metals and stones.
Like law firm, whoever representing a third party.
Yeah, or that's normally like a registered agent or
Yeah.
somebody do like corporate services and stuff like that.
Like a
Yeah.
trident?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they all look pretty familiar.
there's a license for financial corporate service providers, and then one for financial services. Those people who, you know, act on behalf, you know.
For me, I'm just looking at land developer. I understand why, but I guess when I see the word land developer, I'm like, okay, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
think it fell under real estate, but no, separately land developers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the funny ones: land developer, dealer in precious metals and or stones, pawn brokers. So this, what the name, cash and go? What was it?
Yeah.
Cash for gold.
Gold,
Cash
gold
for
something, gold something.
They've
cash
all
gold.
gone now, eh? Cash for gold. They're closed,
They
right?
still right. They still here on the
No, we
cover.
still have some pawn shops here, and I don't
Yeah.
think cash for go is still here.
Okay. So all of that, and then look at this government agency. So that's the Ministry of Finance. I don't know if the Attorney General office, they probably sent this out too. And so they want to know your level.
Yeah.
And you know, we just fill it in so we can get to the next page, and they say
Miss,
below.
sorry, Miss Bullet. So it'd be Ministry of Finance and probably as well as housing. If they have land developer, then it would be housing as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so say below are a number of crimes with underlying money laundering as well as money laundering itself. Please answer on the basis of whether these crimes are perceived as a threat to the Bahamas. Enter your immediate impression between 1, no threat, to 5, serious threat. Okay, and so cyber crime, serious threat, drug trafficking, serious threat, arms trafficking. You all can tell me if you all agree or disagree.
Yeah,
Agree,
serious.
agree.
People and human trafficking,
Agree.
illegal wildlife.
I'm shocked at that one, but I agree.
Illegal wildlife trafficking, illegal fishing, environmental
Crawfish,
crime.
definitely.
Yeah.
Crawfish, yeah.
The
Oh, yeah.
Dominicans,
Yes.
right? Fraud,
Yes.
Yeah.
romance fraud.
They
How
need the
many of you
numbers.
ladies get that email and say, bring me in from Africa and I can marry you and we can live happily
Mail or
ever
the
after?
bride. Mail or the
Yeah.
bride.
Remember the girls from Russia and Cuba?
Yeah. Okay, organized crime. Do we have a lot of gangs?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, bribery and corruption. Nobody's ever been charged.
5+++. We need
Should I-
like 6
I
pluses
should put
after
no
that.
threat.
We
I
need
should
the 6 pluses.
I say let the record reflect that we have no charges of bribery and corruption on our
Thank you.
books. So I don't
Point
see
for
it as a
country.
threat. I don't see it as a threat. Terrorism.
terrorism,
That should
I
be
would put at
low.
3. I'd put at
Domestic-
3. I'd put it at
domestic-
3.
Domestic terrorism, they burn
Maybe
down the
domestic,
entire,
yeah.
Okay,
they,
what
they
about,
burn down
I would say
they
it's
burn
3.
down what?
the entire Bamsey school. That's an
Oh.
act of terrorism.
Yeah,
Right,
but
they
that's,
shot,
it's not a frequent occurrence. You know, so it's not a
Yeah.
regular occurrence here. So I would,
but
I
we remember now in the US in 2019, we had more than 365 domestic terrorism. And when the US sneezes, we catch a cold. We had 6 men shot on Jerome Avenue. We had the Fox Hill Park shot up. And then we had the Montague, not Montague, the baby
Lights.
shower in Montague Lights.
Right.
And on September 11th, a plane came into Freeport.
yeah, but
That
that was, what
that-
are we talking about? We talking about
Those
2021,
are acts of
right? We
terrorism.
talking
It was
about,
only
They are
five.
acts of terrorism. So we still saying 3?
I would still say 3.
Okay,
So
okay.
they were isolated incidents.
Yes. Okay, well, let's hope that they stay isolated. Nuclear weapon proliferation financing.
Oh, no, I'd go to a 1. What is that, 1?
And RTEC, what are RTEC? Okay, you'll stay right there. You'll stay right there.
Okay, let's,
Protect is by the government, right?
The US
so
government.
let's do a 3. Let's do 3.
Yeah.
Is that a threat though?
Right,
Are
because
they-
that's organized by the government or tech. That's
Yeah,
the
but it's
US
still-
government and the Bahamas government together. Right.
So if
in
it was
collaboration.
Iran or Afghanistan, then it would have been a threat, but because it's the US, it's
Yeah.
no threat.
Right.
Okay, I see how it works. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's hope they never turn on us.
Ooh.
Digital asset crime,
Oh, 5.
digital currency crime,
5.
money laundering. We only have
5.
84
10.
charges. What is your source document, ma'am? We have 84 persons charged with money laundering. Where are you getting this information from?
Life.
They'll say it
Life.
without a smile.
Life.
Tax evasion. Who in Miami right now for Thanksgiving?
Tax evasion is a 5.
Listen to
It's
me.
a 5.
Tax evasion.
Where's Joey? Joey, are you on this class? Because not a person, not a millionaire in Abaco
Yes.
pays real property tax in this country. Tax
Not,
evasion.
not on most of the family islands. They don't pay.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, but let's talk about $1 million properties. We talking
Hello,
about
hello.
properties.
Can I say something?
Yes.
Abaco, they do. As a matter of fact, the government in 2019 collected almost $900,000 in tax
After they then gave
from
them
second
half off.
homeowners.
After they
From
gave them
second
50%
homeowners, not
off.
from no Bahamian, ma'am. Sorry, not one Bahamian paid.
Not
From
exactly.
second homeowners.
But Ms. Bullet, this is after they gave them 50%. Remember they had all those billboards saying, if
Yeah.
y'all come and make a payment, we'll give you all 50% off.
Right. And see, they probably was see those second homeowners in their countries. They have to pay it. So they was too afraid to owe us, but no Bahamian paid.
I know about them
Anybody who
because
obey
some
for
of them were my
Thanksgiving
clients.
Okay. Anybody who obey for Thanksgiving weekend right now, when they come back, they are not declaring more than $500. Okay. So, it's very high. Prostitution,
Very high.
very. They
It's
just
very high?
invaded Sandtrap this week. Y'all didn't see all the
Yes.
persons getting
All the
arrested?
foreigners.
All the
Where's
foreigners.
that?
Say what?
Sandtrap was raided and they found loads of foreigners, foreign
Where's
workers.
Sandtrap on East Bay? West,
Y'all read the
West Bay?
newspaper, please.
West Bay Street.
Yes.
They closed on West
I
Bay
didn't know
Street.
Sandtrap reopened.
They are not open. Some people just acquire the
They're just
residencies
entertaining.
there.
They're just
They live there.
entertaining.
They live there.
Oh,
don't
you
get
meant
there.
on that property.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
live there on
Oh,
that
I
property.
thought-
Yeah.
I
Right
thought the
across from
bar itself was
Texaco.
called the Sand Trap. I did
Yeah,
not know
the bar itself was called the Sandtrap. However, they are closed, but the persons that work in these areas still live. They live there, so that's why they raided there.
Ah.
Apparently, they were offering some services from there.
They always
Mhm.
have issues
They
there.
were
Money
entertaining.
laundering
Yeah.
and human
Yeah.
services.
But
Yeah,
isn't that
I
isn't,
think drugs
isn't that
too.
a former MP's son's property?
Human services.
yes, it is. It sure is.
Is it not?
Yes, it is. And he
No,
did
that
it.
good MPs.
He owned the
Yes, it is.
establishment.
I know that because I know him very well.
Two
Oh,
MPs, two MPs, a former speaker, they own the establishment.
Exactly.
Oh,
wow.
What is this?
oh. Anyway, embezzlement.
And there's 5 plus plus plus.
John
Let the record-
Travolta. John
Let-
Travolta embezzlement.
Let the record reflect that there are no cases on our books of embezzlement. I just want you all to
Sorry,
know.
there's a ledge
Right.
between Pleasant Bridgewater and John
John
Travolta.
Travolta.
But that was one case, and you're saying
And Obi
our
Wilson.
tech
And
in
Obi
proliferation
Wilson.
financing, extortion,
Oh yeah.
All
insider
that.
trading, art
Yes.
crime. That's what we were told.
Wasn't there a company, an investment firm here called Gibraltar Holdings that was mixed up in some trading issue?
Yeah, but my colleague who we could talk about 2 chapters from now too got let go for insider trading out of Kalina and Commonwealth Bank. So we'll talk about that in 2 classes, but it was not a crime at the time on our books.
Mm.
Royal Bank Wealth, we got caught up in an art crime, and that's why we closed down. So I have to say 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
We have
Yeah,
art
that's
crime
what-
over here.
Yeah, but we
Someone-
had the, we were the trust company, and so the trust, the settler turns all the assets over to the trustee, and so the assets now belong to the Royal Bank Wealth. And we it was an art dealership, and they used to sell and buy art, and we had all these big binders of the art, but of course nobody understood, nobody knew what it was.
Yeah.
And so we were doing these transactions for the various art. We say, oh, it's art, it's within their profile. And because we are the owner of the trust, they called us up one day and they said, we'd like a larger storage facility. And so we looked around in France for a larger storage facility, just like Moscow, own all the storage. We went to Moscow, open up a storage facility, and soon after we got a subpoena and a warrant to go into the storage facility, and some stolen art that had been missing for like 10 years was in there. When we opened the
Wow.
books, the big binders with the 800-900 pieces of art, the pictures of the stolen art was in the book.
Yeah.
And so the French government sued us for tax evasion, colluding with the company, with the beneficial owner to tax evade, as well as holding the storage facility was in the Royal Bank of Canada's name, with the stolen art. So essentially, yeah, so we closed to avoid the reputational risk because, there are 5 jurisdictions of Royal, or, 5 different entities of Royal here. So we was in the newspaper every day, so they just closed. So we got off of the tax evasion charge, but still the stolen art, they still fighting that in court. Yeah. So 33 persons went home for that one account. Okay, so make sure that if you are account officer over these accounts, especially now with cryptocurrency being popular,
Yeah.
you are aware
Miss
of
Bullitt,
the risks associated with these accounts.
Miss Bullitt, quick question. Prior to all these new regulations stuff, we were considered at one point a tax haven, correct?
Yeah, and they still, even though we sign into CRS and FACA, they still saying we
Still
don't have a
considered a
tax,
tax haven?
corporate, but they saying that we don't have a corporate tax, and so it makes us more competitive, and we'll attract more persons. They wouldn't open up an account in their country because we don't have the corporate tax. So in some aspects, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so it says, we would also like your input to which jurisdictions are perceived to be a threat to the Bahamas. And, they have all these different countries.
All of
course,
these.
yeah. And then it goes on and on and on and on and on.
What
for
is
us.
it? That to the Bahamas?
Yeah, well, of course, we'll say Haiti because we
Haiti,
have a lot of
Cuba,
illegal immigrants.
China, Dominican, no, I don't, Dominican Republic.
I agree with China, but you know, most people will think that China coming here to invest. But what China does is they lend countries loads of money that they know they can't pay, and they have acquired like Guatemala's port, different places in Africa. China owns their port, so we have the second largest ship registry in the world. If we can't pay this 192, is it million or billion dollars that we borrowed to build this port? China then will, China will
That means
acquire
that
our port just like
yeah.
So they lend you the money, but they come to collect.
And what happens, Miss Bullard? Do you ever play Monopoly when you own all the shipping ports and things? You own the world.
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
So that's their strategy. And if we don't keep our, I mean, we already signed to the agreement. And
Well, Ms. Bullard, did you see, I think it was last week's write-up that Moody's downgraded us again?
Yes, I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Okay, so just to give you a visual of, and this is about 6 or 7 pages, so it takes more than half an hour, you know, like they say. But just to give you an idea of what the regulators ask of you as a financial institution, and then they send out statistics saying that only 30% of the financial institutions answered, and that's not within good support. And they basically say the next time they will implement a fine if we don't respond. But these questions take very, very long to answer. And like I say, you know, they were disappointed with the response. So again, it is to assist with the information that they are compiling to support the country's risk rating. So I just wanted you to have a visual of what you could expect, you know, and like when the laws. Sorry?
Ms. Bullard, this is a question that they sent out to companies to answer, but they're disappointed in the response. Shouldn't they be researching these themselves because they're providing this to, where is it?
You go out to the sector. You go to the sector and you ask the industry, you know, what are their views, and then you compile all the information.
Yeah.
You know, so you won't say one person sat down and decided this. No, the industry said, you know, these are
but outside of the industry saying, like, I mean, like, what about hardcore facts? Like, we had X amount of cases to justify this, you know what I mean, this number or whatever.
Yeah, but like I say, we have 84 persons being charged with money laundering since 2018. None ever charged before because it was not a predicate crime. Nobody charged with, like I said, I attended a meeting in 2017 when Alive was putting on the platform for the crowdfunding and what have you, right? And Alive was there, and whoever the chairman of the CFATF was there, and he said, "Are the Bahamians law-abiding citizens? We have nobody charged with money laundering, nobody charged with bribery and corruption." And so we just sat there and we laughed, you know, and that's when they told us, now your laws have to be expanded. Not only does the MLRO go to jail, but everybody who's a part in it, the CEO can go, the receptionist can go, everybody who was party to the transaction and was negligent will go to jail. Okay, so like I say, because our statistics are very minimal and they are, you know, like I say, around the world, especially in the Caribbean, you have presidents being impeached, governors of the central bank being removed or going to jail, loads of accounts, all the charges, this bank, that bank. You can look at dirty money, even though HSBC got a slap on the wrist. They got charged, how much billion? 9 billion? It was a slap on the wrist because they made it in 5 weeks. So loads of
the rest.
Yeah, because that's their revenue. They could make that in 5 weeks. So a very large company like that, and they still standing all around the world. You won't see them close down nowhere. They may have closed down 1 or 2 branches, but they still going strong, right? And so, what did you watch it? Dirty Money. The
Yes,
case where
I
they
watched the whole entirety.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Okay, so watch it, Shante, so you could, you know, it's on Netflix.
Yeah.
Dirty Money, I watched that and I can't, didn't we had something similar like that, like companies set up like a couple years ago. I was in Abaco though. There was this place, I think that, so they alleged that Sabas had something to do with it, where person was coming there and opening accounts and they were giving them XYZ. If you put $1,000 down, X, and you get this amount of money. And looking at today, now we don't have things like that, like open, but there is, I think they still have companies doing the same thing. And I think certain banks come off like dirty money. I wouldn't call it certain the name of the bank, but the way they do things where they add on the credit cards and the other little ASU and things like that, that could be like borderline.
Yeah, but see,
I
they
forget
have
what to
these
call
ridiculous,
the
they have
word.
unreasonable targets to meet. And if they don't meet their targets, they lose their job. And so everybody's saying, oh, I get school fee, oh, I have a
Yeah,
mortgage to pay. And so they compromise themselves trying to meet these targets. So yeah.
but when you go in the bank, like sometimes they call, sometimes they, if you get a little loan, like just to open up your account, like, okay, my son, he just got a job and he wanted to establish his credit. So he got a little loan. 2 years later, he got a little loan. And the bank, one particular bank, was calling him over and over and over and over for a credit card. And I said, why you need a credit card? He couldn't even give me a reason why. He was like, well, they said a credit card will give me more uh, uh, um, uh, um, what you call it? It will give me more um, history, whatever he said at the time, history, whatever. I said, listen to me, do not get a credit card. I never had one. So don't get a credit card if you don't have no reason for it, because
Oh,
you're
yeah,
gonna
revolving
over
debt. Yeah, revolving debt.
establish.
Your
Yeah,
grandchildren will pay that for you, okay?
uh-huh. And
Close them
he
out.
was adamant,
Close
oh,
them
I'm
out
gonna
if you
get it.
have them. Try to pay them off. You will pay them for the rest of your life. You will take them
He was
beyond the grave.
And
Okay,
he was
so
like, they were saying, oh, I'm young. And because I'm young, I need to establish my credit and I could pay it off in no time. I said, listen, do not get the credit card. Well, of course, he got the credit card. And this was a couple years now. And he still have to pay on that.
yep.
He didn't carry back that credit card and all that, but he's still paying.
That you like I tell you, your great grandchildren will love to pay that credit. Revolving debt is the worst. Get out of it. Whatever you do, get out of it. Their
Uh-huh.
debit cards
And
now,
then he
get
said
out of
they attach a savings towards the credit card.
it.
And I've never heard where you can attach a savings towards a credit card.
Yeah, no, that's what they're doing now. Yeah, they do that now. They do that now.
Yeah, but
Wow.
revolving debt, well, like I say, the past the grave, you would be paying for that. So please try and get out of it. If you have credit cards, try and line them up so you can pay them off, because you will owe for them and the fee is for the rest of your life. So pay them off
All,
and consolidate and get out of that.
Miss Bullet,
And have the savings alone.
all that as far as I'm concerned, because
Yeah,
I think it's atrocious that we're paying 17 and 18% interest on consumer loans. It's just ridiculous. And 8 and 9% on mortgages. And when you look at the states, they had 1.5 and 3% and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
agreed,
just deplorable.
It's
It is
disgusting.
deplorable. When we
But be
look
keeping them in
at minimum
business.
wage in this town, it's disgraceful.
Agreed. Agreed, but be keeping them in business, so we have to do something
Because
about it.
you gotta live. You need a little consumer loan to get yourself on car to get on these low paying jobs.
Yeah,
You don't catch the bus.
That's funny.
Getting killed on the bus.
Very true.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, so ladies, that's the last chapter on risk. We are going to move on to the suspicious activity and cooperation with enforcement authorities in the next two chapters. So next week we'll look at the STR. We'll go through it to ensure that we understand how to fill it out and what is required. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, great.
So, quick question, Ms. Bullard.
Yes.
So, are we to utilize this the classwork sheets as like for review purposes for the exam?
Yeah, but we are going to have a review class, but you will classwork to practice to ensure that you understand the chapter, like how the terminology was confusing us. So let's ensure that we are all on one accord and we know what the question is asking. And this is the purpose of the classwork and the homework, because I found that a lot of persons show up in the exam and just did not know what the question was asking.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's sometimes it's confusing. Like yeah, you want to know exactly what it is, so you could be on the right track.
Right track. Correct. Correct.
Okay, and
Okay.
so we have a homework due on the 26th. I see.
Only one homework is required.
Oh,
If
so we
you've done
finished that.
question 1, that's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Amen.
If you've done question 1, if you have not done question 1, then you can select from the other 3.
Okay.
Only if you have not done question 1.
Question 1. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, re-rolling.
Okay, so do you complete your classwork so you can ensure that you're on the right track?
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Okay, and ask any questions at the beginning of the next class regarding the classwork.
Okay.
Okay?
Wonderful.
Okay, so y'all have a good, go ahead.
One more thing, several of us attended Jasmine's club meeting yesterday. Was it yesterday? It felt like yesterday.
Yes, it was.
Yesterday,
It looked so
Toastmasters,
good.
healing communicators.
Yeah, several
That
of
was
us
really
attended her.
informative, though.
Okay, go ahead. Who's gonna share? Give me the names. Let me document the names, and then one person can share, I guess. And
Gotta get those points in. Gotta get those points in.
Yep.
Well, I have something
Okay.
that
Well,
stood out for me.
The club name is Healing Communicators.
Okay.
Toastmasters, and their topic was Candy Stubbs. I think it's
Joey
3 other
Dan.
persons. Joey Dean. It's another person.
Demerit, you mean at the Kiwanis meeting?
Yeah.
We ain't been to
Yeah, the
Toastmasters. We been to Kiwanis.
Quizzer, right?
Oh, okay.
Quiz
Then,
on.
well, I was the Toastmasters.
Oh, we
Oh,
was to
sorry.
Kiwanis.
We
That
went
was
to
the Kiwanis
Kiwanis.
Club of New Providence.
Kiwanis was at 7, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Toastmasters at 7 too.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so who's gonna speak on behalf of Kiwanis? Who went to?
I went to Kiwanis. Then
I went to
Went to
Kiwanis.
Jasmine's meeting.
yeah.
I did.
Wasn't
That's
it? Okay.
Kiwanis of New Providence. Kiwanis of New
Right.
Providence.
Okay.
Basically, you guys want me to do it? Just the overview of it?
You
know,
can.
Go ahead.
We had a physician,
Dr.
Dr. Horsley, very and he deals with the foot. So what is he, a podiatrist?
Right.
Yeah,
he
he's a
with that.
podiatrist. But what was so surprising, he was discussing diabetes and amputation of limbs in regards to diabetes. And it was a shocker that he said that we, like, was it as a Caribbean or we were number 1?
Number 1
the Caribbean
out of the entire world.
Oh, wow.
With diabetes. And what was so surprised, another eye opener, he was like, we should only be cooking with peanut oil or coconut oil. Like vegetable oil there is absolutely no vegetables in it. And like that was very surprising. He was like, vegetable oil is not good. Does anyone remember what he said that was in vegetable oil?
The
petroleum.
Yeah, and some soy something or something.
Soybeans.
But that is the oil that stays.
And another thing that that was what was an eye-opener for me. He said, because there's not a lot of physicians or podiatrists I think it's throughout the Caribbean, that they have now starting having to train the medical doctors to how to detect signs that causes of diabetes. Anybody else remember? To me that was very, very surprising. So he actually teaches, what do you say, third year medical students on how
Yeah.
to detect this within their patients, because there's not enough podiatrists in this jurisdiction, in this region, I guess. So that was a lot of surprising things he said that you just wouldn't think of, just going through your everyday life,
Yeah,
but he was talking about the calluses on your foot, how those are signs when they get into your hands. Basically, you're gone. You could be at the knock.
yeah. He had mentioned, he
When you
said
start seeing
usually
calluses in your hand, yeah.
when persons go to a medical appointment as a diabetic, one thing that a doctor never does is the doctor never asks that person to take off their shoes to check their feet, because usually there would be signs of something going on. If if the feet are checked, you could possibly save a person's foot or both feet. He had also talked about did he mention the Bahamian diet? I think he did.
Yeah.
And he was, yes,
yeah,
because he seemed
did.
to be I don't know if he's a vegetarian or
Yeah, he said he's a
Like a
vegetarian for 26
nutritionist. He's like a
years.
nutritionist.
yeah,
He
like he
knows
seemed like
how
he
food
had,
works with your body.
yeah, and he was saying how awful our diet is, and
Mm-hmm.
he sometimes goes to the beach when he's here, because I think he's from Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
but he spends a lot of time in the Bahamas, and he said he would go to the beach and all you would see is, fast food containers and whatnot, and how our diets, and we all know that our diets are terrible, right? But the Bahamian diet in particular is really bad. And, it is heavily contributing to the diabetic statistics here, even though we like to say, oh, we inherit the disease. If we simply stop eating a lot of the things that we eat, then we don't have to say that it's inherited, because most times it's really not an inherited disease. It's a custom, because you see your mom and your dad eating peas and rice and macaroni all the time. And so it's not necessarily a genetic thing that's going on in the body.
Yeah.
And another thing that he discussed that stood out for me when he was talking about the art of panicking and choking, that's a little stray from the conversation, but he started to talk about it, and he was saying how panicking is the opposite of choking, and they may seem to be the same thing, but panicking is more like thinking too much, and choking is more like panicking is thinking too little, and choking is like thinking too much. And those things stood out because it's like when you find out something is wrong with you, it's like you start to panic, and then you causes more harm to your health by panicking. Was happening, stuff like that. And then talking on the diabetes side, because my father died from diabetes, and certainly he was saying about the feeling sensation in the leg and stuff like that. And my dad used to walk barefoot a lot, and I'd be like, Daddy, why are you walking outside in the cement? I know it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's definitely hot. And he could never feel stuff like that. So I'm like, wow, this is like real.
Yes.
Yeah, it was so, I was just listening to him attentively. It was really informative, and I'm glad I attended that.
Yeah. That was another eye opener when he explained that a diabetic person, if they walk on a cold or hot floor, like how like non-diabetic people will feel it, like they have literally no feeling
feel
at the bottom. And I was like, wow, because I would think that they would feel it because they're so sensitive. But
they're not sensitive. Don't have
They're
no
insensitive.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
But too, and seeing those pictures of how diabetes eat away at the body, that's like an eye opener. You saw those ulcers on those people's feet.
Yeah.
Oh my
It was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was a very informative class, Ms. Bullard.
Okay.
Hi,
good,
one thing
very
he,
good.
Miss Bullard, one thing he also mentioned was he said once you get one of your limbs amputated, you have at least 5 years before you have to get a next amputation. So he was working along with Dr. Johnson because that's what they trying to avoid, all of the amputation. He says a lot of diabetics, like if they take off their socks, they'll be missing like a few toes. And he was also talking about when you have to get your pedicures and stuff done, those are the first indications to show that there's going to be a numbness in your foot. So like the lady mentioned, her father could have been walking on the concrete and he wasn't having no feelings. he's saying some of the blister starts at the toes and then it just spreads up the legs.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
He also said too, I'm jumping off of your point too. He had said that most times when a diabetic person has an amputation, they don't live very long afterward.
Yeah.
And I have seen that in my, I've seen that in my family. For those, family members who've had amputations, they really did not live longer than 5 years. And I was like, oh my goodness, we
Wow.
take this thing for granted,
Yeah.
But it was a very informative health
Joe-
lecture. He was really, really good.
Joey, just to confirm, did he say that we were the #1 as well for amputations, right, in the Caribbean?
The Caribbean.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't know
world.
what we doing down here.
Yeah.
But he
Yeah, he
said the
was saying-
numbers are
he was saying
alarming
the-
for the Caribbean.
Well, what he
Wow.
was saying was ratio to diabetic patients to how much of them get amputations is higher in the world.
Mhm.
Because the United States may have 100 diabetics, but they only have 2 amputations versus us who may have 100 diabetics and we have 10 amputations. Our ratio is very high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, ladies, very good. Thank you for sharing. Candy, you went to another meeting?
Yes, that was Toastmasters Healing Communicators. That's
Okay.
7178. And their theme was based on Thanksgiving, Country of Many Blessings. And they had a few speakers, members of the group, presented on the gratefulness and gratitude. And what I gathered from one of the speakers, they based their topic on gratitude and the difference between celebrating in good times and in bad times. And they were suggesting that what you can do, like different steps, because it's not easy to feel grateful for good things when a lot of stuff going on with you. And they're saying that you have to be optimistic about everything. And even though it may be bleak that day, but you could wake up the next morning and what was so troublesome that day is almost like a memory. It's still there, but it's almost like a memory because it's not as urgent as yesterday as today. So that was basically their meeting on gratefulness, gratitude, and to counter blessings. And it was informative, and they had poetries and stuff like that. Persons spoke about being grateful and thankful. And I did share me being grateful because there's a lot happened. And just recently, my accident, and it could have been, worse, but I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm still here, going through some of the traumatic, even with the hurricane, I'm still here. So there's a lot for me to even be thankful for. So I really, after 2019, I honestly can't complain about anything because everything to me is like, life is like a gift. Earthly possessions, of course, you want those things, but they're not important when you lose everything. They're not important. So I like what they talk about, and it cost me to even, deal with certain things that I didn't want, issues that I didn't want to bring up because of going through something horrific as the hurricane, but it was good therapy for me. And yeah, that was basically it.
Okay, so great. Candy, thank you for sharing. And once you have life, you have another chance. And I'm glad that you have a positive outlook despite, the trials and tribulations. So very good. And I'm glad that you ladies all found the topics informative and beneficial. So again, go out there, network, and these forums, like I said, it doesn't have to be financially related, but it teaches you something about life. And most persons that go to these meetings, find them beneficial. So I do hope some of you get the opportunity to join, or you can make, sometime once a month too, just for your career development or professional development or just development as a person to, attend these forums and get some good information. Okay. Okay, so if there are no further questions or concerns, we'll do this again, but it's today, Wednesday on Saturday. Okay, so we're almost there. Okay, so for you who know the exam day, please make sure if your office allows you time off, put in your study dates. It's going to be near Christmas, so a lot of persons may have time off. So try and arrange, or if you have to take a vacation day, try and arrange a day, just to ensure that you have all of this down pack and you are not overwhelmed, and overworked and rushing, but you are organized and calm and can put all of this back on paper and be successful.
Hi, Miss Bullitt. I have a question for the article where we would read or the newspaper. We just supposed to discuss it with you, or are we supposed to write something?
No, discuss it in class.
Okay. I could discuss my article quick, please.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. So I looked at two articles. One was a headliner where Shane Gibson was saying he was upset over the fact that, he was dragged through the whole case. And now they found they had the issue with the police officer and her telling the persons to come in and fix their stories. He was saying how it ruined his name in terms of him doing business, and he suffered so much financial loss due to the fact that it was only an allegement. So I don't know if he's gonna actively sue the government right now, but I know for sure he was saying that the way in which we conducted the case, when I say we, I mean the Bahamas, the way in which we conducted the case, he felt as though it should have been done better. And he also was speaking in regard, I think Kendrick Dorset case is still up in the air, and he was saying because of these cases, well, I guess they were saying that they shouldn't be placed on different boards now during the PRP's term in office due to the negative light on their names. So,
it's so funny. It's so funny because Shane Gibson won his case on technicality.
Yeah, but he's still saying, the effects of his name being dragged through the mud and through the media, it turned a negative light on him. And he was saying how a lot of their businesses received the backlash in their finances due to him being associated with these businesses. So he was.
But it was proven in court that he had some type of business that was compromised. He was in a lot of compromising position. He won his case on technicality. So it isn't that
he wasn't looking at it like that. He only looked at it how it negatively affected him as a person, not the
This
whole
is not
case.
his first rodeo. This is not his first rodeo.
Well, he
this
made
is
it
just the
seem
first one
rodeo.
went before the courts. Actually went before the courts.
Well, I guess maybe that was the blight, but it was right in the Guardian, and that was what he was upset about.
So
He needs to just let that go.
So just to trying to grasp what he was saying, he is complaining that he is unable to spend the money that he obtained through bribery.
And
that's what he's saying.
And then his lawyer.
What he's really saying is he is saying because y'all carry him in the front of the court to say
for bribery.
For bribery.
He still has the money.
But he is saying he won his case, but now wants. But he
now he
feels
that he should be able to spend the bribery money.
But exactly.
But he's unable to spend it.
And he got cost.
He still got the money. I don't think he turned the money over.
No, and his attorney asked for cost, and their cost was almost as much as the legal fees. So what is he complaining about?
The negative association attached to his name.
A reputational risk.
Right.
Anyway, y'all late because we talked about this at the beginning of the class. But
he is at high level from any business.
Hey, thank you, Decreasa and Candy, for your take. Okay,
you.
yes. Anyway, you all have a good evening, and we'll do this again on Saturday.
Have a good night.
Okay,
Good night, everyone.
Good
Bye.
night, good night.